Hey guys and girls, today we're going to look at 4 measuring tools that you need to know about so that you can learn when is the appropriate time to choose each of these tools. We're going to begin with a tool that you probably know the most. This is a ruler, okay? As you can tell, it has some tick marks on it. That's all of these little lines that you see at the top. It also has some numbers. There's some bigger numbers on the top side, and if I flip it over, there's some smaller numbers, okay? So when you're using a ruler, you can use 2 different units. On the larger side, you can use inches, and as you can tell right here, it says inch. Something to help you remember about how big an inch is your thumb. From the tip of your thumb to the first knuckle, that's about 1 inch. So if you're trying to estimate or make a good guess, 1 inch is about from your tip of your thumb to your knuckle. So there are 12 inches in one ruler. This is also known as 1 foot. There are 12 inches in 1 foot. If I were to flip on the other side, I can measure in a different unit. This is called centimeters, and you can see a little cm here. That's the abbreviation for centimeters. Centimeters are even smaller than an inch. So if you remember that an inch is about from your knuckle to your thumb, a centimeter is about the size of your pinky nail. It's very small. It's a lot smaller. 1 centimeter is about 1 pinky nail. So it's a lot smaller than an inch. When you are deciding whether or not to use a ruler, you need to think, is the object smaller than the ruler? Because if it's bigger than a ruler, you can use this tool, but it's not the best tool to use. This tool is used best for small objects. And remember, you can use centimeters on one side or inches on the other. When using this tool or any measuring tool, you always need to begin with 0. Now, some rulers doesn't have a 0 on it. This one, we drew 1 in. You can tell a student has colored that 0 in. So we wrote a 0 on this one, and it's the very first tick mark. Some rulers do not have a 0. Some rulers just begin on the very end, so you have to be mindful of that. When using a ruler, you can't just lay the ruler down and just start measuring wherever you want to. You have to line up one end on 0 so that your measurement will be correct, okay? So this is a ruler. It is 12 inches. You can measure with inches or centimeters. And remember, I want you to use this for small objects. It's best to measure using small objects with this one. Next, we're going to look at a yardstick. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit. A yardstick, as you can tell, is a little bit bigger, okay? Now, a yardstick also has inches on it. But as you can tell, it goes all the way to 36. Now, I know you don't see the 36, but the 36 is the end of the ruler. So there are 36 inches in one yardstick. That would be like taking 3 of my rulers and lining them up end to end. That would be 1, 2, and 3, because 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 36. So there are 36 inches in one yardstick. That's the same as 3 rulers, which is the same as 3 feet. So if you hear someone talk about using a yardstick, there's a big difference between a ruler and a yardstick. So we're going to make sure that we're using our yardstick to measure items that are a little bit larger. It would be silly to use a yardstick to measure my chapstick because this item is so small, much smaller compared to my yardstick. But it would make more sense to use my ruler to measure the chapstick because this is a small tool to measure a small object. Now, if I wanted to measure how tall my door is from the floor to the top, then this would be a good tool. My yardstick would be a good tool because it's a larger unit. If I measure using one of these, this is called 1 yard. Remember, that's the same as 3 feet or 3 rulers because it would be 12 plus 12 plus 12. Okay, so yardstick. So next, we've got a similar tool to the yardstick. This is called a meter stick, and once again, it's very large, a lot larger than our ruler. You can tell when I compare it to my yardstick, it's actually a little bit longer than the yardstick. 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters, okay? Remember we talked about centimeters on the ruler? They're very, very small, about the size of your fingernail, okay? So if I were to take 100 of these or 100 little fingernails and line them up, that would be how long a meter stick is. Once again, this is a tool that you would use to measure long objects or objects that are pretty tall. This would be a good tool to use to measure how tall your door is or how long a table is, or if you want to learn how long your bookshelf is. This would be a good tool. If I wanted to measure the distance from one wall of my classroom to the other end, which would be the best tool? Would I use a meter stick or ruler? I could use either one, right? Yes, I could. But the meter tool is going to be the best choice because it's a larger object, a larger unit measuring a longer distance. It would take me more work to use the ruler. That's why the meter stick or the yardstick would be the best tool. All right, so far we have a ruler, 12 inches long, measures small objects. Then we have our yardstick, 3 feet long, which is the same as 36 inches, used to measure larger objects or longer or taller objects. In the same, when you're choosing yardsticks and meter sticks, they're very, very similar. Just remember that a meter stick is 100 centimeters long. It's a little bit longer than a yard. And this, you can use yardsticks and meter sticks interchangeably to measure the same distances, like how long my bulletin board is, how tall my door is, how long my picnic table is for these larger objects. The last tool we're going to look at is something you may have seen at home. It's bendy. It's a little bit plasticky. It's got inches and centimeters on it as well. Different, you can see that I'm starting at, here's 0 right here, and it starts at 1. But it goes, this is actually a measuring tape. My measuring tape goes to 60 inches. Different measuring tapes for different things can be different distances, okay? Mine just happens to be 60. Now, why do you think this one is bendy? What kind of objects could we use to measure with this bendy tool, the measuring tape? This tool is used to measure curvy objects or around. We call that the circumference of something. So if I wanted to measure around my head, or if I wanted to measure how wide my waist is, or if I wanted to measure around my water bottle or a basketball, anything that's round or curvy, I can use a measuring tape. This is handy because if I wanted to measure how big my head was, maybe I wanted to make me a headband and I want to measure how big my head was. If I get my ruler, I'm going to have a hard time. Why? Because it won't bend. I can't measure around my head using my ruler. But if I get my measuring tape, I can place it around my head very easily. I can have a starting point and a stopping point, and I can mark it, and I can tell that my head's about 22 inches around. When you're measuring around objects, this is your go-to tool. If the object is curvy or round, around the tree, around a basketball, around a balloon, anything that's round that you would like to see how the distance around it, your measuring tape is the best tool. Okay, so let's do some practicing. So I'm going to show you an object, and I want you to help me decide which tool will be best: ruler, measuring tape, or yardstick or meter stick. Okay, so I've got a football field here. Now I'm talking about a real football field that like NFL players play on. But if I want to measure from the football field from one end all the way to the other end, do you think I would use a ruler? Probably not. I could, it would take me all day, right? Because a ruler is so much smaller. Would I use a measuring tape? No, because I'm not measuring around it. That doesn't make any sense. But my yardstick or my meter stick would probably be the best tool because these are larger units. Yes, it would take me a while, but not as long as this one. Okay, so this, yes, I could use it, but it's not my best tool. If I'm measuring the distance of something very long, like a football field, I want to use my biggest unit, which would be my yardstick or my meter stick. All right, let's try another one. All right, so next I have a beach ball. I want to measure how the distance around my beach ball. What would be the best tool? Would I choose ruler? Nope, because I can't bend it. I can't make this bend to go around the basketball. Would I use a meter stick or a yardstick?